All right, let's dive right in. Picture those high-stakes moments that demand everything you've got.
You mean the last seconds of a playoff game, maybe?
Exactly. Or navigating a sudden market crash, stepping up to lead some complex, urgent project. What sets apart the leadership that thrives under that kind of extreme pressure?
Well, it's often not just about the technical skill or the strategy at that point, is it? It really comes down to something more fundamental.
Like their internal operating system.
The mental frameworks you rely on when everything around you just feels chaotic.
Absolutely. And today, we're pulling wisdom from one of the most demanding environments, really, on the planet, the Navy SEALs. We're exploring insights shared by Vice Admiral William H. McRaven, someone who led operations requiring just incredible clarity and composure under fire.
But, and this is key, as powerful as those military lessons are, our source material, specifically the work of Coach Ed Padalecki, translates them directly.
Coach P.
Right, Coach P. He takes Raven's principles and reimagines them for your world.
So whether you're a high-performing business leader, maybe a coach shaping a team, or an athlete pushing your limits.
Exactly. He makes it relevant.
Coach Padalecki, pulling from McRaven, cuts right to the core idea. Leadership is difficult, yes, but it is fundamentally not complicated.
Which sounds almost contradictory, but it makes sense.
It does. He highlights these striking parallels between leading in combat, in elite sports, and in high-pressure business scenarios. The stress feels different, maybe, but the core requirements for leadership, remarkably similar.
And what Coach P really underscores, and this is where sports psychology offers a crucial lens, is the concept of mental agility.
Okay.
It's that ability to stay anchored to your values, maintain clear thinking despite immense stress, and adapt when things inevitably go sideways.
It's that internal resilience you need for peak performance when it really counts.
Precisely.
So our mission in this deep dive is to extract those actionable mental frameworks from Coach Padalecki's take on the SEAL playbook.
Give you insights, tools, maybe?
Exactly. Insights that can enhance your clarity and composure when you're in the hot seat. We're going to unpack these principles and see how you can deploy them in your world.
Okay, let's get into it. Coach Padalecki presents 10 principles, and they start with something incredibly foundational.
Principle number 1, death before dishonor. Integrity is non-negotiable. Pretty straightforward, right? But how does this intensely military principle apply when you're leading, say, a sales team or coaching athletes?
Well, it translates directly to the absolute necessity of integrity as the bedrock. Coach P emphasizes that integrity is the primary builder of trust.
And trust is everything.
It's the non-negotiable foundation of any winning culture, anywhere. So for you, this means more than just avoiding dishonesty.
It's active.
It's active. It means owning your mistakes fully, living your stated values out loud consistently, even when it's inconvenient or costly.
That's the hard part.
And critically, doing exactly what you say you will do every single time. In high-stakes environments, a leader's integrity isn't just a moral choice. It's actually a performance multiplier. Any crack in that foundation just erodes the team's willingness to follow you when the stakes are highest.
Okay, so integrity builds trust. And building on that, the next principle reinforces how it's built. You can't surge trust.
Right. You can't suddenly generate deep loyalty and confidence in a crisis if you haven't built it up over time.
Makes sense.
Coach Padalecki points out that trust isn't forged in those single dramatic moments. It's built in the accumulation of countless small, consistent actions over time.
Day in, day out.
Exactly. This is the essence of what sports psychology calls reputation capital.
Reputation capital. I like that framing. It's not just a feeling. It's almost like a strategic asset you build.
Absolutely. Think of it like a reservoir of goodwill and reliability. Under stress, your team draws from that reservoir. The crucial insight here is that showing up consistently, being reliable, predictable in your positive behaviors, following through on commitments, especially when the pressure mounts, that's the currency of trust.
So you build that capital day by day with your team.
You do, ensuring they have the confidence that you are dependable when everything else feels uncertain. The common pitfall.
Taking the small stuff for granted.
Exactly. Assuming the big moments are when trust is tested, when in reality, it's the daily grind where it's truly earned.
So when that moment of pressure does arrive, principle number 3 is key. When in command, use it, lead with conviction. This sounds like taking charge, maybe forcefully.
It is direct because in critical moments, ambiguity is just toxic. Coach P notes that when things go sideways, the natural human response is to look to the leader.
For direction, for certainty.
Yes. Decisive action, even when information's incomplete, is paramount. And this ties directly to the concept of self-efficacy in sports psychology.
Self-efficacy. Belief in your own ability.
A leader's deep belief in their own ability to navigate and overcome challenges specific to that situation at hand.
And the alternative, indecision. What does that do?
Oh, indecision is a profound confidence killer for a team. When a leader hesitates or waffles, it just signals uncertainty. It erodes the team's belief in their collective ability to succeed.
So acting with conviction.
Stemming from that inner self-efficacy built through past experiences of overcoming difficulty.
Yeah.
It isn't about being infallible. Nobody is.
Right.
It's about projecting the necessary confidence and providing clear direction to maintain momentum and belief within your team when they need it most.
You think about a critical pivot in a business negotiation or a change in strategy mid-game.
Exactly. Hesitation there can be fatal.
Okay. Principle number 4 brings the focus back to the team dynamic and maybe individual perspective. We all have frog floats. What exactly is the frog float reference here?
It's a nod to the reality in SEAL training, where everyone, regardless of their prior status or rank, had certain basic gear they all had to carry the frog floats. The core idea is that in an elite unit or team, no one is above the fundamental tasks. No one's above the necessary grunt work, the carrying of water for the team's success.
So it's really about managing ego, keeping it in check.
Fundamentally, yes. Coach Padalecki highlights that championship teams, whether on the field or in the market, are built by individuals who consistently subordinate their personal ego, their status, or preference to the needs of the collective.
Humility in this context isn't meekness, then.
Not at all. It's a ruthless focus on what serves the team's objective, regardless of your personal role or perceived importance.
Like the star player hustling back on defense.
Or the senior executive taking notes in a meeting, the coach cleaning up equipment after practice. It prevents entitlement from fracturing that necessary cohesion.
Okay. Principle 5 links back to that idea of consistency and pushing through difficulty. The only easy day was yesterday. This feels like more than just physical grind, though.
It absolutely is. Coach P stresses that mental toughness isn't the absence of fatigue. It's the unwavering commitment to perform with excellence precisely when you are physically and mentally exhausted.
Showing up and performing when every fiber just tells you to stop.
Exactly. It's that profound commitment to the daily grind. Showing up and performing regardless of how you feel, the external obstacles, or past successes or failures.
Endurance as a high-performance trait.
It's about building the capacity mentally and physically to maintain your standards and execute under conditions of depletion. Think of the marathon runner hitting their pace in the final miles.
Or the startup team pushing through another late night before lunch.
Or the coach maintaining their energy and focus through a really grueling season. That's stamina.
Okay. Principle number 6 offers a counterintuitive approach to challenges. Run to the sound of the guns. My natural wiring, I think, might be to retreat or freeze when I sense danger or extreme difficulty.
And that's a very common survival instinct. Perfectly normal. But high performers, as Coach Padalecki emphasizes, cultivate the ability to lean into discomfort and challenges. This is perfectly captured by the sports psychology concept of shifting from a threat appraisal to a challenge appraisal.
Okay, threat appraisal versus challenge appraisal. How does that work internally? Break that down a bit.
Well, a threat appraisal frames a difficult situation as something that could overwhelm you, harm you, expose your weaknesses, something to be feared and avoided.
All right, triggers that fight or flight. Maybe mostly flight or freeze.
Exactly. It triggers a defensive, often debilitating physiological and psychological response. A challenge appraisal, on the other hand, looks at the same difficult situation. Not as safe or easy, obviously, but as an opportunity.
An opportunity. How so?
An opportunity to demonstrate your capabilities, to grow, to apply your skills under pressure. It reframes this is impossible or too risky to something like, okay, this is incredibly difficult, but I am prepared. And this is what I train for. I am built for this challenge.
That mindset shift is, well, it's powerful. It changes the internal experience entirely.
It really does. It's about consciously choosing to approach the difficulty, seeing it not just as a barrier, but as a proving ground. It's an active cognitive reframe that allows you to marshal your resources and engage proactively rather than reacting defensively.
So think of a complex negotiation hitting a wall.
Or a competitor launching a disruptive product, or facing a really dominant opponent. Viewing it as a challenge unlocks your problem-solving and resilience.
Okay, principle 7 is sua sponte, and that's Latin, right? Meaning of their own accord. How does this tie into leadership?
Coach P explains that in high-trust, high-performing environments, Those environments built on that integrity and consistency we talked about. Leaders don't need to micromanage every single step.
Because the trust is there.
Exactly. Instead, they empower individuals to act autonomously, to take initiative of their own accord within the shared mission and values.
So trust enables empowerment, which fuels initiative.
Absolutely. And that empowerment directly cultivates a profound sense of ownership within your team. When people feel trusted to make decisions and take action without constant oversight, they invest more deeply in the outcomes.
And that ownership isn't just a nice-to-have feeling.
No, it's a direct driver of performance, adaptability, and engagement, especially in fast-moving or complex situations where waiting for explicit direction can just be too slow.
It requires the leader to be comfortable letting go a bit.
It does, delegating real responsibility, not just tasks.
Okay, building on that initiative. Principle 8 is who dares wins. This might feel, well, risky, especially in a traditional corporate structure.
It's about the necessity of action for progress and, importantly, for confidence. Coach Padalecki highlights a critical insight from sports psychology. Confidence is not built in the locker room through visualization alone.
Important, but not enough.
Not enough. It is fundamentally built through action, but doing the thing you fear or find difficult, even if imperfectly at first.
So courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. We've heard that before, but this grounds it in action.
Precisely. And taking calculated risks, acting courageously when it's needed, isn't just about the individual leader. It's contagious for the team.
How so?
It signals belief, momentum, and a willingness to break inertia. Coach P urges you to recognize when the moment requires a leap, a bold decision, a difficult conversation, launching something before it's perfect.
Which is hard for perfectionists.
Very hard. But that act of daring can galvanize others and unlock progress that careful planning alone sometimes cannot. It's about understanding when inaction is actually the biggest risk of all.
All right. Principle number 9 feels like a necessary counterbalance after talking about daring and action. Hope is not a strategy. Plan with precision.
Yes, this brings us back to the essential discipline required. Coach Padalecki is unequivocal here. Success is not a matter of just hoping things work out. It must be meticulously engineered through detailed, granular planning.
So vision is great, absolutely essential, but execution needs that structure.
Exactly. Having a big vision or ambitious goals is vital. But the critical, often overlooked step is translating that vision into concrete, executable steps.
Breaking it down.
Breaking down the mountain, you want to climb into the specific routes, the gear lists, the training schedule, the contingency plans. Coach P states it plainly. Goals without structure equal wishes.
Wishes out.
Without a precise plan, your aspirations remain just that, ethereal hopes, not achievable realities you can actually work towards with intention.
And finally, principle number 10 acknowledges the messy reality that planning inevitably meets. No plan survives first contact.
This is perhaps the most crucial principle for navigating today's unpredictable world, wouldn't you say?
Things change so fast.
Coach P emphasizes that even the most perfect plan will immediately encounter disruption the moment it meets reality, that first contact with the market, the opponent, the unexpected problem.
So don't be surprised when it happens.
Expect it. Resilient leaders and teams don't just brace for disruption. They actively train their capacity to adapt, pivot, and maintain effectiveness despite it.
So the training isn't just for executing the plan perfectly.
No, it's also for the inevitable chaos around the plan. Mental flexibility, the ability to rapidly assess a changed landscape and adjust your course without collapsing, that's highlighted as a paramount edge in volatile environments.
Building that adaptive muscle.
Exactly. Resilient leaders do this by exposing themselves and their teams to varied challenges, practicing rapid decision-making, and fostering a mindset that views setbacks as information, not necessarily failure.
It's about being, as Coach P puts it, like a bullfrog, calm under pressure, ready to move in any direction needed.
That's the image.
Wow. That's a really powerful set of mental frameworks, forged in extreme conditions, yes, but incredibly relevant to the pressures you face every day as a high-performing professional coach or athlete.
They really shift the focus from just external circumstances to your internal capacity or mindset.
Coach Padalecki's core message seems to be, leadership is profoundly a mental game. It's not one of ease, but definitely one of endurance.
And it all starts with your commitment to showing up consistently, facing pressure with that quiet composure, and pursuing your purpose with informed boldness, embodying that bullfrog spirit he talks about.
And he leaves us with a direct challenge, a challenge specifically for you, the listener, to reflect on these principles and your own practice.
Yeah, 3 parts to this challenge. First, consider this. What specific challenge are you currently navigating? Maybe it's a tough decision, a difficult team dynamic, a personal performance plateau, something that requires more clarity, more courage, or just more consistent application of these principles. Try to pinpoint one thing.
Okay, one specific challenge. Second, looking back at the 10 Bullfrog principles we've just discussed, which one speaks most directly to your current leadership edge? Or perhaps more importantly, which one highlights an area where, deep down you need to focus on growing right now?
Be honest with yourself there. And finally, the action step. Don't let this just be interesting information. What is just one small micro action you can commit to taking today?
Today, not next week.
Not next week, maybe in the next few hours. One tiny step to build a sliver more integrity, demonstrate a bit more consistent reliability, take one small calculated risk, or maybe just practice showing up with more mental stamina in a challenging moment.
Lead with honor. Relentlessly train your mental toughness and truly understand the profound, often underestimated power of simply showing up fully, consistently, and with conviction. That seems to be the takeaway.
And here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. Which of these 10 principles felt the least comfortable to hear or think about? The one that perhaps sparked a bit of internal resistance or discomfort?
The one you maybe flinched at.
Exactly. Chances are, that uncomfortable spot is precisely where your most significant opportunity for growth as a high performer lies.
Something definitely to think about as you go about your day. We hope this deep dive provides some actionable mental frameworks to help you lead and perform under pressure.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We hope this gives you some food for thought as you continue on your journey.